Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Glasgow City Innovation District webinar. As for some of you who've maybe been on our webinars before, this is part of our session called Made in Glasgow, which is a webinar series where we kind of connect into a lot of the kind of innovation and also lots of the kind of businesses in Glasgow who are involved in kind of developing new products, services and applications. So today's session is all about data, and it's great that we've got one of the Glasgow City Innovation District's companies that are located in the area called Bridgall, who are with us today. And as I say, the title of today's session is all about making data-driven decisions. So as I say, for some of you who may not have been at one of our sessions before, Glasgow City Innovation District is Scotland's first innovation district as I say, in Scotland, and it was essentially kind of created to kind of bring together all the kind of create a hub of entrepreneurship, innovation and collaboration within the city of Glasgow. One of the kind of key organisations, obviously within the centre of that, is the University of Strathclyde, and alongside quite a large ecosystem of innovation centres, also Innovate UK catapults, and also kind of the SMEs and startups that are located here. One of the things which is also the Innovation District's kind of famous for is also for its creative sector. And that's also kind of where the district kind of comes in, takes into the kind of merchant city, and also kind of takes in everything up to kind of like George Square. So certainly there's a lot going on, and for those of us who are always, obviously we're all still at home and working from home these days, but certainly over the last year or so we have been kind of producing these sessions to kind of bring together the kind of community together. One of the things which, again, for all our, in addition to the webinars that we host, we actually host what's called a series of office hours sessions, where any company or any SME can obviously meet with the team to kind of get specialist advisory support with regards to the development of their organisation, and those take place the Monday following our main kind of webinar. So there's still sessions available. If you want to kind of connect onto that, then please do. That would be great. So today I'm Alistair Gunn. Obviously I'm part of the Innovation District team, and it's great to have you. And one of the things which we've got today is that when we've been looking at some of the kind of the opportunities for companies and the growth opportunities, data is actually at the centre of that. And for some of the in the last couple of months, one of the things which has been happening is that companies are starting to use data to obviously to develop their business, to generate some value from that, but also looking at how they can actually develop new products and solutions. And so it's great today that we've got Stephen Beer and Umar Ali from Bridgall. Some of you may have heard of Bridgall before. I would say that Bridgall has been one of Glasgow's longest and established software development businesses, and I will be letting kind of Stephen and Umar kind of talk a bit more about that. So today there'll be a presentation where obviously will be kind of connecting into that with both Stephen and Umar, and then at the end of the session we'll also be talking a kind of very informal kind of panel. To let everybody know that the session today is going to be recorded, so it will be available for everyone afterwards. Also, as I say, there's a Q&A function at the very bottom. Please do put in kind of questions, and we'll be picking them up as we go along through the session. So without further ado, I'll then let Umar kind of pick up on the presentation, and we'll kind of connect on to the next stage. Over to you, Umar.
So hi there, everyone. Stephen Beer speaking. So thanks for having Umar and I today. If I can get this traversing. So in terms of what we're going to be talking about, it is what was in the agenda. So we're going to talk about data-driven decision making. how you can use your data in your actual organisation better to help transform the business. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe why you should invest, and the second part of the presentation will be about Umar actually showcasing some accessible technology that is available and can be implemented fairly easily. So really that's what I'm planning to talk about today. Just before I do, obligatory advert for our organisation. So chose this picture here because you can see the City Chambers in the background. So we're right on George Square, very much part of the Glasgow City Innovation District. So we've been established in 2002, and as Alistair said, probably one of the oldest software Indigenous companies in Glasgow. So we're quite proud of that. We've got 33 staff. So in terms of what we do, we help companies build their modern intelligent workplace, and that can mean a range of things to different people. We deliver managed IT services, so we help them to manage all the infrastructure, all the applications that they are in their estate and throughout their whole journey. And we do have a couple of products. SmartCrowd actually is an innovation management platform, so pretty apt, and we have Trevi, which is in the water sector. So essentially what we do, we help companies, we advise them, we build and implement, and we support them on their journey. So we've got loads of badges, loads of accreditations, so just some things to draw out. We are a 9x Microsoft Gold partner, also a Gold in data platform and analytics. We're a cloud solutions provider, which means that we get preferential pricing and support, which plays out well for our customers. So we basically develop and configure applications in all the Microsoft ecosystem there. From a personal point of view, I've actually been in software and IT since 1983, which is a long time ago now. Fairly early on, I spent 6 years with Oracle, who were the RDBMS leader in the day, and I think there'll be others who would contest that now. But more importantly, though, I've led Bridgell for the last 18 years, and in that time we've delivered hundreds of applications and databases for hundreds of large and small businesses. So hopefully that puts us in a decent position to have some conversations about data-driven decisions today. So, what is DDDM? So essentially it's about using evidence. It's using the evidence in the data that you have rather than intuition or gut feel. And we should all be honest, we do it all the time. We make decisions and we think, well, that's gut feel, and sometimes gut feel's right, but not a great strategy if you're planning your whole business on gut feel. And you really should be having a think about what's your customer behavior telling you, not what you think they're doing. How's your operation performing, perhaps? Are your assets being utilised in the best way possible? And across all this stuff, what are the trends? These are things that really ought to be considering. So I'm going to give you some colour to that, probably two or three examples. First one there, obviously Yellow Taxi, it's New York, and that's actually New York Public Libraries, which is on Fifth Avenue, very prestigious library it is too. So the first one I just wanted to talk about in terms of data-driven decision-making is a chap called George Kerr, who was a librarian in West Lothian. So George used to go to the annual book fair every year, spend whatever money West Lothian had allocated for books. And he was quite frankly tell us, many years later, of course, that he'd buy books based on intuition, because he thought he knew his readership wanted. The next year and many years after, he was very annoyed because those books, he'd walk into work and he'd see them on the shelves and never been taken out. So what George did was he actually started manually analysing them, getting data into Excel, very laborious, but he came up with a set of techniques called evidence-based stock management, and that started to deliver promising improvements. We got together with George probably about 6 or 7 years after he'd started doing this, and what we did was we developed a data management platform and analytics, capability to deliver the same advice at scale. So, it would enable, without, a lot of manual intervention for the librarians to know what books to buy based on the readership's behaviour, where to put the books, and there's more demand in library A than library B for a novel, for example, and so on. But ultimately, lots of libraries around the world, some like 25,000, have enjoyed the improvements that JAWS got from it. So again, libraries pretty much Cinderella of services these days, but ever more important. So what was being analysed there were, customer loans, and as a proxy for sales in many organisations, and also the asset info, where were they placed, what, how were they utilised, and what condition they were in. For example, if it's taken off the shelves many times, then it's time to get a new copy of it. Another one maybe worth highlighting, so the business-to-business water market in England, pretty sizable market in terms of value, £2.5 billion. Retailers who operate in that market only operate on a margin of a gross margin of 5%. So it's quite tight, and there ain't many of the retailers making money at the moment, and certainly that pre-COVID that was also the case. In common with many sectors, data quality is a big issue in that market, and certainly has been for other utility markets. And there's lots of cases of overcharging and undercharging to the retailers from the wholesalers. So essentially, with our experience of the market, our knowledge of the market, we built a data platform to identify variances, to then support, give them tools to support the investigation of those and gather evidence to recover overcharges. So there's an example there of one retailer who actually recovered £700,000 over a period of 6 months with the data platform. And again, what's being analysed there is a supply chain and the actual commodity goods, albeit pretty expensive ones, that they're buying. And another final one really is Edinburgh Miniature Tattoo. They have a fairly sizable audience for all the shows every August. Obviously, it's not been going on recently. So customer relationship management and ticketing are critical, but they had some issues around single version of the truth for many of the data items. So basically what they needed there was to get a data management strategy and also a data platform built. So the result has been, we've implemented such a thing. They've got a secure and stable and scalable solution, and they can actually make far more consistent analysis and better informed decisions around sales and marketing based on that data. So those are just some examples. In terms of why you might invest in data, well, ultimately, the data in there can be used to be transformed into actual insights, and insights that can be helpful. It can certainly improve your decision-making process and the speed with which you move forward. It can improve fault prediction. So, for example, there's predictive analytics and all sorts of things. Maybe you've heard, about lift manufacturers knowing when things, are going to be failing in future. By looking at your data and long-term trends, for example, you can identify opportunities, and some of those could be strategic. The examples I mentioned there of cash recovery and also forecasting demand are common use cases across many organisations. So having a think about what might be done better in your business along these generic lines might lead you to having a think about what you could do with that. Some common challenges that might be in your way. Well, currently, you may have reporting processes, but they might be slow, they might be manual, the data in there might be, the provenance of it may be suspect. Data quality, as I've mentioned, sometimes that is not only, the concern of your organisation, it can be market data, but, being sure as much as you can be of the quality of data, and also how to improve it is something that needs to be addressed. you know, we've seen many, we all know spreadsheets are being overused, have been overused. And again, those start to generate cottage industries around what's true and what's not, and actual internal wars sometimes. And again, sometimes with the data that's available, it's very limited about what you can actually forecast. So how would you actually think about then making it the norm? So I think the first point really is start to be serious about it and treating data as a strategic corporate asset. It's not actually rocket science, but you do need to get serious about it. But technology is only part of it, which we're going to come on to, of course. Creating the right culture is absolutely the number one. You need to be able to, you know, start to encourage your teams to, you know, adopt a critical thinking approach and be curious about data. You do need to obviously create a self-service model rather than it being in the hands of tribes. And I love this phrase, smash tribal knowledge, especially that tribe size is one. And I think, again, we've probably all been in situations where, you know, there's been a tendency for people to hoard the knowledge and the data. So it's about democratizing data, making it more widely accessible, but giving people the tools to do it, to allow them to explore, but also do it with appropriate governance and security. I think the other aspect is you don't expect people just to get on it and start doing it. You need to give them some training, set them off on the right path. And more importantly, it's got to come from the top. You know, it's got to be, you know, an agreement from the kind of top people in the organisation that this should make a difference. So how could you move forward on it? Well, you know, I think it's like many other things. It's certainly worth starting to think big, but start small and act fast. So don't, you know, people talk about a data strategy, and these things are important. Interestingly, I don't think you'll find one particular data strategy that's used in an organisation, even the format of it and the structure of it. So, but you know, there are elements that come in there that ought to be thought about. So don't start thinking you need to get something in place quickly. Have a think about some of the key elements and then move forward. What you ought to do also is maybe perhaps think about picking off an opportunity that would be advantageous to the business. Let's say you've got some particular objective you want to achieve this year. Is there anything that data could do to analysis of data could help you get there? So try to identify some quick wins, but actually work on building on those in increments. So it's not about trying to boil the ocean all at once. It's about trying to move forward in a solid basis. But focus on rapid and agile iteration of these things.
And just I reckon, Stephen, on that, when we've got a lot of companies, who kind of are obviously kind of thinking about the kind of the approach they're taking, that not to get to kind of too overwhelmed with regards to what they're trying to achieve. I know that Umar will come in talking a wee bit more about this on the kind of process, but I guess it's recognizing that that like leaders or kind of even a kind of the board of a business has to kind of think about this, a bit more with regards to kind of getting a strategy in place. Would that be the case?
Yes, I mean, I think there are many companies who are well down the path and very sophisticated at it. There's obviously companies maybe not giving it too much thought. But for those, some people are struggling about it. I think getting the board buy-in to agree that something ought to be done is actually critical, and actually making the business case to them to show them the benefits of it is probably the first very important step. Yeah. So there needs to be preparation done before, and I think moving on there to the next slide, Alistair, if we get it. I think it is the strategy of the business though that's going to shape a particular data strategy. So as I said before, there's not one size fits all, but you need to think about what the processes might be, who the people will be, and what the policies are. So, not to get into too much detail about it, but there are things around the provenance of how the data has come about, that are very important, because, if you're going to build, a data platform, however that might be constructed, you want to know that the data in there you can rely upon, and you know how it's been sourced, how it's been transformed at all, and that it doesn't conflict, with other information that you have, and that, it is the single version of the truth, perhaps, organisation. So you need to think about how data is collected, how it's transformed, and how it's stored across the organisation. So thinking about all these things, do form part of the strategy. I think, well, one final thing, I should talk about governance, because it is important. It can become a free-for-all. You need to get some rules in around, who can do what, and also who can access what as well. Security and governance are fundamentals, really. You ought to think about early doors. So in terms of, what you should be thinking about, this generic term of data platform or data management platform is certainly something that should be on your agenda. Now, everyone has a data platform, whether they know it or not. It might at the moment be in Excel, in your CRM system, your sales system, in Excel. That might just be your data platform at the moment. What we're talking about here, and other companies do as well, is about trying to combine a unified data platform from which your reporting, your analysis is done. And, Umar will showcase some of the technology here, but essentially this data platform is an integrated set of tools that means that you can build your information up, again, incrementally, that you can then rely upon. So you get a truthful, reliable data many sets of provenance, and you've got a range of visual means of accessing those insights and other means. You can do it in an agile manner, so you can get quick analysis and quick decisions. So I think that's the main point I would point out. It's a very generic level about a data platform. You do have one at the moment, just might not be in the best shape possible. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to Umar's part of the seminar today. Probably no surprise that he is going to be talking from a Microsoft-centric point of view about how you can build data platforms. And again, there's other technology out there that you can have a go at. We would just recommend that you use Microsoft. Anyway, over to you, Umar.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, so like Stephen was saying, there's a number of technologies that you can use to build a data platform, and one of the most common ones is Microsoft Azure. So Azure is a cloud computing platform that was created by Microsoft. It provides a full range of cloud services. These include data storage, data processing, analytics, including real-time analytics and artificial intelligence too. Users can pick and choose from these services to develop new data platforms and even run existing data platforms in the cloud. Azure offers tools that support all industries, including e-commerce, finance, and it's also compatible with open source technologies. So this gives users and also data analysts and any engineers you might have the flexibility to choose their preferred tools and technologies. In addition, Azure offers 4 different forms of cloud computing: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and serverless. Microsoft have got data centers around the globe. There's over 100 data centers in 54 different regions, And each of these data centers provides high availability, low latency, and scalability. Can you move over to the next slide? Thanks, Stephen. So within Azure, you can use these products to start building your data platform. One of the first tools you would use is an Azure Data Factory. Now, a data factory is a data integration service. It allows you to connect to multiple data sources and systems and pull data out of these. So you can connect to your CRM system, which might be hosted on the cloud, your HR system, which might be hosted on-prem, and even an Excel spreadsheet that's holding some important financial data, but is stored on a shared drive within your organization. Once you've pulled all this data out using Azure Data Factory, you can store that data in a data lake. A data lake is basically a holding area for data. One of the really good things about Azure's data lake product is you can store data of any size and shape. So you can store structured data, semi-structured data, and also unstructured data, and it can be terabytes in size. Once you've got it in the data lake, you can start then processing the data. A common Azure product for processing data is Azure Synapse Analytics. Synapse Analytics contains services for data warehousing and also big data analytics. With Azure Synapse, you can connect to your data lake and pull the data out and start mashing it together to perform analysis and computations on the data. So for example, you can start calculating actual sales versus forecasted sales, or even last year's sales versus this year's sales, and the deltas between these figures. Once you've got your data in a product like Azure Synapse, you can then expose it to visualization tools like Power BI, which I'll demonstrate after this slide, and even Excel. You can also make use of that data in any other systems that you have within your organization. One of the great things about building a data platform in Azure is you don't need all these components to get started. Depending on your requirements, you can pick and choose the products and services. So for example, you can connect Power BI directly to a spreadsheet and start visualizing data straight away. In the future, you might decide you want to visualize the data in that spreadsheet mashed together with data in your CRM or ERP system. At this point, you can introduce Data Factory, Data Lake, Synapse, and so on. So building your data platform, it can be done in an incremental manner. It doesn't have to be a big bang approach. You can pick and choose and grow your platform as your reporting and data needs get more complex. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is present Power BI, which is Microsoft's visualization product. It's really powerful. So I'm just going to share my screen here. What I've got on screen here is Power BI. What I've displayed on the very first tab of Power BI is a sales dashboard for a company that sells bikes. Using the company data and visualizations that Power BI offers, stakeholders can very quickly see what's happening in their company and why it's happening. Power BI comes with several different types of visualizations that allow you to spot trends and take action. So I've got a chart up in the top left-hand corner here, which shows the sales by year. Below this, there's a chart that shows the sales by region, with the regions highlighted on the left-hand side and the sales going across the way. Below that, we can see the number of orders for this company and the reason for those orders. Up here, we've got a donut which shows the number of sales that happened online and the number that happened in store. And below that, there's a chart that's showing us the categories and subcategories. So in this instance, you can see bikes, and within bikes, you get mountain bikes and road bikes and touring bikes. On the right-hand side of the screen, I've got a couple of KPI cards. The one at the top shows the total value of sales, and the one below that shows the number of products sold. I've also got a couple of filters here, one for year, which I'll demonstrate shortly, and another one which allows us to filter this by special offer. On Power BI, everything is linked in a dashboard. So what I can do here is if I click 2013, all the other charts update to only show the data that's relevant to 2013, and I can then hover over this and we'll be presented with a tooltip. And in this scenario, I can see in Japan, I can see the sales highlighted and also what the total sales for Japan across all the years were. And this applies to all the charts. I can also use the filter on the right-hand side here to choose a year. So I'll choose 2014 here. And this acts in a slightly different way in that it only shows 2014 data. It removes all the other data. And again, the tooltips are still there and applicable. One thing just to mention here is this Power BI report is pulling data from a database that's got over 1 million rows in it. And you can see how quickly it's doing these filters. So all of these filters are rapid. You know, click the bike section in the screen updates. One of the other visualizations that's quite an interesting one is the map control that you get in Power BI. And this is really handy for visualizing location information. So on here, the bubbles represent the value of sales in that region. And using the donut in the bottom right-hand corner here, if I click on, let's say, Europe, what it will do is it will focus in on Europe in the map. And I can now hover over these bubbles and get the value of sales. Yeah. And like the visualizations on the first page, everything updates here. So, you know, you'll only see the countries in Europe highlighted when I've chosen the Europe slicer. Yeah. What I also want to show is how quickly you can create charts yourself. So what I'm going to do here is drop on a visualization and pull some data in. Just minimize that. So if I'll choose sales orders and put in sales in the values section and pull in the order date into the axis section. And you know, the data set that's got 1 million rows has very, very quickly displayed a chart here which shows you the sales by year. So it's very, very fast and very easy to start creating your own visualizations. It's also worth noting at this point that I'm currently using this in designer mode. The normal kind of mode of operation for companies would be you would have a team that develops the reports and then publishes them onto a web portal, and from there users can access the reports, and you know, you can give users read access or read and designer access as well. It's totally up to you. I'll also point out the different data sources that you can pull into Power BI. If I click this Get Data tab here and choose More, there's a list of sources that you can pull data from. So Microsoft have got over 140 different data connectors, and they're releasing new ones every month. So, you get Excel, CSV files. There's also relational databases in here, not only Microsoft relational databases, but also Oracle, MySQL databases. Just going down the list here, you get products from other vendors. So there's Snowflake there, which is a AWS product. There's all the Azure products here, so you can connect to a data lake or a Cosmos DB, which is Microsoft's NoSQL offering. There's a list of CRM systems down here as well that you can connect to. There's Salesforce CRM as well. You can connect to LinkedIn and pull data from there. Just very quickly go down this to show you all the connectors that you get. Now, like I said, there's around 140 native connectors, but Microsoft, release new ones every month. You can also view this dashboard on a mobile or a tablet device. Power BI is mobile and tablet friendly, so no matter what device you have, it will automatically resize to meet your requirements. And quite a common use case we get is sales people that are out in the field and want to visualize data in real time using their mobile phones. With Power BI, you can very quickly create a dashboard and they'll be able to view it on their phone, and it will automatically resize based on the size of their device. You can also take Power BI and embed it into custom applications. So again, a designer would go in, build this, the developers would then take this report and embed it into a custom application, and it would all run very, very quickly, just as you see here. When I click these, it's all running really fast, with a data set of over 1 million rows. It'll run just as quick in an embedded app. You can also change the theme of these reports very easily. So if I go into here, I think Microsoft have got something like 20 default themes. You can download more or even create your own ones. So if I click Bloom here, it totally changes the look and feel of the report. I think I was using the classic mode, but you get several other ones here. So if I go to City Park, it's a nice kind of green and blue shade in there. And the classic one is what I'm showing on screen now, which is very nice as well. Power BI comes in 3 different editions. You get the desktop version, which is what you're seeing here. This is free. You can connect to any of the data sources that I mentioned earlier, pull data in and start visualizing straight away. With Power BI Desktop, because it's free, it's really only meant for individual users to build reports on their machine and view them. If you want to give reports to other users and share reports and collaborate on them, you would use Power BI Pro, which starts at roughly £7 a month per user. And it also comes part of Microsoft Office's E5 license. And, with the Power BI Pro licenses, a designer would go in, build these dashboards, publish them up to a web portal, and from there they'd give other users access. They might give certain other data analysts access so they can build the reports, and then they might give the rest of the company read-only access so they can go in and start visualizing that data. The third Power BI offering is Power BI Enterprise. Now, Power BI Enterprise is really made for enterprises that have got lots of data, but also have lots of users, and they'll come up with different pricing depending on your needs. So that concludes the Power BI demo. I'm now going to hand back to Stephen so he can go over the closing slides.
So just to round up the session, or certainly the presentation part anyway, so what we've given you is a flavour of what data-driven decision making is, and talk through some concrete examples of how that's made a difference to some businesses. The key message is, I would say, think big, think of a way you'd like to get to, but also start with small projects and be incremental and agile as you move forward. Things are going to change, so you need to embrace that, as the agile methodology says. But you should actually have a think about building out an effective data platform, and the sort of technologies there that Umar has demonstrated today can be a good starting point for you. And again, we can see that there's others out there, but we would just recommend that you go with Microsoft. So, Alistair, that's really concludes what we plan to have a chat
Excellent.
about.
Fantastic. Okay, Stephen, do you want to kind of stop sharing your screen and we'll go into the kind of Q&A, a couple of questions, which is great.
Okay, we'll do.
And I say, anybody, if you've got any kind of questions, please do kind of post them into the Q&A. One of the first questions we've kind of got is, can you actually explain again what the data lake is in Azure? Because again, it's what that actually means in the kind of the wider context.
Yeah, so the data lake in Azure it's basically a product that you can use to store data in. It's like a database, but it's not got the constraints of typical relational databases. So, you can store relational data in it. You can also store semi-structured data, so you can store CSV files and also XML files and JSON files. And the purpose of it is it's a holding area for some of the other products in Azure. So from there you might take one of Azure's real-time analytics services and call the data lake and start processing that data. So it's just like a big pool where you can store data of all formats.
I think the other thing I'd say, Alistair, is highly scalable, massively scalable, and it's cheap. I mean, that's the intent of it, to be able to store lots of data, lots of versions of data, and to be able to do it very cost effectively, but have it accessible for your people who are going to be accessing data.
Yeah, so I guess what it is what this is down is, whereas people have got it spread across different locations, there's an element where it gives you that depository. It kind of gives you the ability to be able to kind of pull together and then start to kind of correlate some of that kind of together, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, people say it's used, as Umar said, as a staging area before it's then used to be transformed into Synapse / Azure data warehouse, which can be. But again, the fact you've got it there enables others to get a hold of it and go and explore it. So it is ultimately a big repository.
So one of the things again is I think for business owners who are obviously kind of looking to kind of starting their journey, Umar, you kind of mentioned that kind of cost related to some of this, and it sounds as if there's the entry level now to actually get access to some of this kind of the data technology is now cheaper. Would that be the case?
Yeah, so with Azure, you only pay for what you use, and most Azure products are costed based on two elements. There's the storage element, and then there's the compute element. The storage element is very cheap. So, putting data on a data lake and even a database, you can get terabytes of storage for pennies. Mm-hmm. It's the compute part that's a bit more expensive. And, that cost totally depends on what your requirements are. Some companies will have lots of data and lots of computation. whereas other companies might not have as much. But just to give you an example of what the costs might look like, we recently, for a client, costed a system that was very similar to the one that I had on the slide there, where we basically had Azure Data Factory connecting to an on-prem SQL Server database and pulling out almost 1 billion rows and dropping that into a data lake. And from the data lake, it went into the data warehouse within Azure Synapse. And for that to run every night, the cost was around £200 a month. And there was lots of computation going on there. So that's kind of roughly what you're looking at for that size of project. You get various calculators on Azure's website, but you only truly know the cost once you do an actual full run through. And one of the great things with Azure is, they don't have this sort of model where you pay money and then you're locked in for 12 months. You can start and stop whenever you want. You can scale up and down whenever you want.
So I guess, so that's kind of one of the kind of comes on to kind of other questions. Obviously, one of the kind of audience of us kind of mentioned about how do you get data out of business systems, out of their business systems. I guess, the kind of thing is about, how much of that kind of planning aspect that you have to kind of, so we talked, I think, Stephen, you talked about requirements. How do you, is that kind of very first stage, that kind of that scoping study kind of really important to actually articulate what you need to develop in order to then start implementing it?
Yes, I mean, I think, if somebody is thinking about this, then back to what I said there, think about what's maybe the biggest win for them. What objectives are they looking at in the business that they'd like to improve upon, where might data help them. But once they've decided that, they will have an idea of what systems the data resides in. Then companies like us can engage with them. If they don't have their own IT people, for example, to come in and just agree the objectives, what they're trying to do. We have examples where we're going to do proof of concepts for companies. They'll identify, say, certain data that's in a CRM system. Lots of standard systems have APIs that we can use to get access to data. We can take dumps of complete databases, transform them, and put them into data lakes. So we've got the technical knowledge, to actually get the data out of systems. Sometimes it depends when the system is, what interfaces are there, and how to go about it. But never been a technical barrier for us to do this in all the projects we've done over the years.
And I guess also that there's also linked into that is the kind of source of the data is actually the generation aspect. So I think I think one of the things you were highlighting was there was the bit of looking at how your data has been generated and also whether that's kind of clean and accurate, but is of value really. In order to.
I think it's actually fundamentally important, as you move forward. I mean, things like that maybe are less so in the proof of concept. You maybe want to get on, show the benefits of it to the client or to wider people in the organisation. But once you get into, we're going to make this a production and a serious part of the business, you need to be sure of the provenance, as they say. I love that word. Of where it's came from, what's happened to it to get to the point where it's being reported upon. But that's all that's all meat and drink to guys like us to help clients set that up. And
one other question we've kind of got here is where does the data team fit within the business? I mean, I guess because we're talking about data's, especially maybe for a small business, right? It may be within their marketing. Does it really matter where that's located, or traditionally where does it kind of reside nowadays?
Yeah, so again, depends what people think they mean by that. I mean, everybody's in the data team as far as I'm concerned. If you're democratizing your data, and making it accessible, again with appropriate security and governance, then yeah, everybody's in the data team. And you know, depending on the size of the organisation, it might be, you do have specific people who are, you know, analysing, say, operational performance, you know, or analysing sales trends. So they might be, you know, functional in sales marketing, for example. You again, depending on the size of the organisation, you might have people whose day job it is to do what we would come in and help. Lots of companies do, you know,
Yeah.
bigger companies have those people on the staff. It does the usual stuff. It depends.
It depends. It depends.
I mean, well, one of the really good things about tools like Power BI is, you know, you can give that to your sales team and marketing team, provide them with a little bit of training, but very quickly they should be able to start drawing up, you know, visualizations, as long as, you know, the kind of data setup part has been done. So, you know, like Stephen said, I think it kind of spans across multiple departments.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the things which, and again, we've obviously got several companies who maybe at different stages of their journey, you know, kind of, we see quite a lot of data courses now out there, you know, from ones that are obviously, you know, that like the Data Lab, and we can, you know, the Data Lab can obviously kind of provide those, and also kind of various universities. So, you know, if somebody was starting on that journey, you know, because you were talking about designers and whatnot, so if there was a small company, what would be the first kind of area you would, on training, do you think they should kind of focus in on in order to move forward? I mean, I guess we all know spreadsheets. Is that a good starter? You know, to start from there, or how do you evolve, you know, obviously your skill set in data development?
You know, you might say, I would say this, Alistair, but I think you should call guys like us in to just at least, you know, set you on the right path. And that sometimes, depending on what your needs are, you know, it might not be more than, you know, a day or two or something like that. But, you know, yes, you could, somebody could go download Power BI, interface it to a spreadsheet and get moving. You might want to take a slightly longer, and there's nothing wrong with that. You could go and do it today and start to understand things. But if you want to think about a data management platform, as we've kind of outlined there, you're as well, I think, speaking to people like us, to just, you know, we're more than happy, as we do have many conversations unpaid for, just to say, these are things that are there here. You know, here's what we could do if you want. But equally, if you've got people on staff, you can go and do this. We can maybe help you with other things. So, you know, it depends again the size of the organisation. But for anybody's curious, you know, download Power BI and just pick up a spreadsheet and start seeing what you can do with it.
What you do. Yeah, and that kind of links on to the kind of final question. You know, can Power BI deal with real-time data and can it be streamed into kind of Power BI? So is it a real-time system?
Yeah, you can connect it up to, I think it's the Azure Event Hub, and you know, that'll shoot out, you know, real-time data, and within Power BI you can actually see that on graphs and so on. Just to give you an example of something we did a couple of years back, when we were in our office in Glasgow, there was this, you know, issue where people kept complaining about the temperature in different parts of the office. So Stephen got us to purchase a number of temperature devices, and one of the graduates basically took those temperature devices, connected them to Azure, so it would pass through the temperature in the different parts of the office, and we had a Power BI report hanging off that would in real time show the temperature in the different parts of the office. And you know, the person that was doing this at the time, he was a graduate, and I think he got this up and running in a couple of days.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was very good. And so we had about 6 different points around the office where data has been gathered and mapped there. it still didn't sort out the arguments, I have to say, Alistair.
No, I can understand that.
Yeah.
So I guess obviously there's a great insight in the fact that it's not difficult to be able to kind of start on that journey. So I guess obviously kind of going to wish to wrap up today's session and thank both yourself, Stephen and Umar, and for anybody else who's obviously on the the kind of session today. Please do get in touch with Bridgel. If you don't have the details, then we'll get them over to you. But it's also great to see again, one of the kind of Glasgow's kind of companies that are kind of leading this in this way, and especially as I say, I touched on about there's a lot of training that's out there now. For people if they want to get into kind of deeper into the kind of data in the data world, but it's certainly something which a lot of companies nowadays need to have obviously in their business. Any final points, Stephen, Umar, at all before I finish?
No, I'll just say, we're here. We have lots of conversations with people who are just starting out. Sometimes with a chat, and then 6 months later they're back to us to get something more substantial. But we're happy just to spend a few hours with people and show them that they're possible, get them moving, maybe advise them on what they should do in terms of their own staff. But we do a range of things, obviously, so it might not be suitable for them in this, but we can help them with other things. So we're here to help.
And one of the things that was successful from yourselves is you created that you created a product, a data product, which of course that was one of the kind of examples you've shown, which is great. So it's a great skill set to get involved with. And
yeah, I mean, not to spend a lot of time I was finishing off, but the George Kerr librarian story, we were the company who built the data management platform that was implemented for 25,000 libraries globally. So a real success story that came out of the head of a practitioner in a particular field who get fed up with things not being right, and he started to analyse the data and then got together with us a few years later. There'll be other people out there right now today being cheesed off with things not being right. So
yeah,
happy to talk to those guys.
Okay, so thanks everyone for joining the session today. Please do get in touch if you're needing any further information or any help with your business. The team, both obviously at Bridgel and ourselves at the Glasgow City Innovation District, here to help you in their business. So thanks again, and look forward to catching up again soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the opportunity, Alistair. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.